Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and welcome back to the channel Parish of Rock. We're going to do an album battle, and we're going to talk about somebody that hasn't been spoken about on this channel, probably long overdue, one William Idol, Billy Idol. We are going to do a bit of an album challenge. Rebel Yell, 1983, the big blockbuster smash hit, lots of singles, MTV, radio chart, and we're going to compare it against one of his later albums, Kings and Queens of the Underground. 2014 it came out, the 8th album produced by the great Trevor Horn and Greg Kurstin. Two completely different sounding albums. As always, we go through the songs and give our analysis at the end of it, what we think of both albums and what our preference is. Parish, you're a bit of a Billy fan? Bit of an Idol fan?
I am, yeah. Almost from the day dot, really. So I remember seeing him on Top of the Pops doing King Rocker. There's the single, which I went out and bought the following day. And he was just different. I mean, I was into new wave and punk at the time, but Billy Idol and Generation X always seemed to stand out. Almost. You could see the Elvis Presley and rock and roll roots in what he did, or hear it. The snarl he did was very Elvis, and the bleach blonde hair almost made him look glam rock in my view. So I always thought he was a bit of a glam punk, really, rather than a out and out punk. And I got the albums, Generation X albums, loved Generation X. I pulled out a few show and tells, so that's a copy of me, Generation X Best Of, and just going through the hits, Valley of the Dolls, Ready Steady Go, King Rocker. Interestingly, King Rocker was produced by Ian Hunter, which is maybe a bit of a surprise that somebody like Billy, that Ian Hunter was into producing punk bands, but he was. But so yeah, I was there from very early days, and a big Billy Idol fan when he went solo. I got Dancing with Myself when that came out, which was like, I think, the very last Generation X single. That was 1980. They'd stripped down to being called Gen X. That's the 12-inch version, so that goes on for about 8-9 minutes. And I think I mention it because I think it became the template for what he did solo, really, where he mixed that kind of punk, new wave sound of the late 70s with dance, and maybe not quite disco, but there's certainly a dance feel in that song and his music, and with a kind of a hard rock guitar edge in there as well. So I think that song is almost the first song he did that really set him up for his solo stuff.
Well, it didn't hurt that he was extremely photogenic. He had a lot of charisma, a lot of sort of raw energy. And he was definitely one of the faces of MTV in the 80s. So I think if you were going to pick 3 or 4 of the faces of MTV, it'd be him, David Lee Roth, and Madonna, and maybe a few others, but definitely he's right in the mix. So why don't we, without further ado, go to this album, 1983, Rebel Yell. This was a big smash. This broke him in America. It's an MTV album, and there he is. He's got the attitude and the snarl. But this bloke on the back, he's part of the story as well.
He's absolutely critical. Absolutely critical.
I mean, his guitar playing, Steve Stevens is just out of worldly. So they are like a dynamic duo, aren't they? It's him and actually him.
Yeah, and when they split in the early 90s, neither were quite the same. And when they came back together in the early 2000s, all the stuff they've done since, they've done together. And effectively, I always think of them as a pair. I think of Billy Idol as, it might be the name, but it's effectively the two of them. It's a bit like somebody like Bryan Adams, who always has the same band with him. You could almost call it a band rather than just an individual. And he's key to the songwriting as well.
Yeah.
Steve Stevens. So yeah, huge part, and certainly for me, his guitar playing is so distinctive. You
Absolutely.
definitely know it's him.
Yep. All right, well, let's tuck into the songs. Rebel Yell, the title track, still get an energetic enjoyment out of listening to this song. I never get sick of this song. Are you the same? It's just
Yeah, I think it's
quintessential Idol song.
it is that and White Wedding, I guess, are the two big hits, aren't they? They're really two big songs that are still played now. Hear it on the radio, you hear it being played on in adverts, on films. Um, yeah, as I showed it earlier, that's my 12-inch version of the single that I got at the time. And yeah, it is iconic, and unlike other songs from the early '80s, it doesn't sound particularly dated. I don't think it's the
No.
sound and the guitar work, etc. We'll get into it with the album overall, but it doesn't have that kind of synthesized drum machine sound that was about at the time. It's classic guitars, bass, drums, but his guitar playing is just amazing. I think on it, really distinctive. That introduction, you know the song as soon as it starts. There's no doubt what song it is. You've got that pounding drums. And I think one of Billy Idol's kind of secret weapons is the fact that he can go from almost like a crooning low tone in his vocals up to a screeching rocker at the flick of a switch, and he doesn't do that any more so than I think on this song when he gets to the chorus, which becomes real piss and vinegar. I think when it gets to the chorus, and I just think it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Funny enough, not a big hit in the UK at the time. It didn't even crack the top 40, but it was re-released a few years later and got to number 6. But at the time, it didn't do very well at all, which is a bit of a surprise. But as you say, a big hit around the world.
Huge hit in Australia. Absolutely. Yeah, really, really huge. And I agree with you. He oscillates from that crooning baritone to the sneering, punkish. It's the perfect blend of rock and new wave, and it's just polished enough that it plays well on radio. So I think a lot of this album is on the right side of not being too metallic that radio would be scared and back off and not play it. So I think it's very clever. The production on this album is just putting it on the right side of the ledger, that it's MTV, it's kind of poppy, it's got a little bit of edge, but not too metallic to scare the pop, the broader
Absolutely.
population
And
away.
I think, and as I said earlier, he's great at writing songs you can dance to. There might be rock songs, but you can dance to them, and I think it does cross over. And neither he or Steve Stevens particularly look like heavy rockers either, do they? I know they've got the leather jackets, but when you look at the hair, and they're certainly not leaning into either the hair metal or the heavy metal kind of look that was there at the time. They were kind of a bit distinctive, cutting their own sort of groove, I think, in what they were doing. And even now, they seem to distance themselves a bit from that scene. I mean, the last time I saw them tour, they were touring with post-punk bands like Killing Joke, as opposed to heavy rock bands, even though most of the audience are either sort of the general public, if you like, and heavy rockers. There's a load of heavy rockers who go and see him when he plays.
Yeah, I think Steve Stevens has got the metal connection, and he's got a lot of buddies that are in that metal world because he is a bit of a guitar hero, whereas Idol is more of the punk side. And Billy did front the reconstituted Sex Pistols, or whatever you want to call that outfit.
Yeah.
One more thing before we move on to the next song, that guitar solo where he does the whammy bar, I never get sick of that. Like the I love that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. All right. So we go to the one thing I noticed about this album is I got a lot of joy of revisiting some of the deeper tracks that people forget about, because there are 4 huge hits off this album, but some of the deeper tracks off this album deserve some recognition. and Daytime Drama is one of them. It's kind of funky. What do you think of this song?
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's got a bit of a post-punk type sound to it, that kind of 80s new wave. Um, I mean, I didn't realise this until I was swatting up for this show, but the album was originally recorded without any drums at all. It was only drum machine, and then on certain songs they went back in and recorded drums. And I think on Rebel Yell, you can tell that's absolutely somebody playing. Whereas on this one, I think it does sound like it's a drum machine. It's got a very 80s feel to it, but it doesn't, bizarrely, not unlike a lot of early 80s stuff, to me, it doesn't sound particularly dated. It sounds good. It sounds almost as if they're trying out new stuff that still sounds pretty new to today. But the thing I really like on the song is the guitar work again. I mean, he does some brilliant kind of post-punk guitar pyrotechnics in the middle of it, which just I think is so cool. It just shows how he was a different rock guitarist to most that were about at that time, and I just don't think he gets credit for it. Yeah, very, as I say, that guitar in the middle sounds very different to most others you would have heard at the time.
Yeah, well, this is a bit of a layered song. You've got a creeping bass line that works over the song, and then you've got these little staples of new wave, the chime keyboards, the chimey keyboard sound, and the hand claps, and then Billy's crooning over it, and then Stevens does this little underlining guitar work. It works. It's nifty. And, it's a bit of an arse shaker, a bit of funk. So Daytime Drama, I like it. I like it a lot. Eyes Without a Face. Wow. This is a really, really solid song, and it holds up so well. And Billy Idol's croon is just sublime. What do you think of this one?
Well, I mean, firstly, funny enough, looking back, this was actually the biggest hit off the album, surprisingly, because we all assume it was Rebel Yell, but certainly in America, this got to number 4. Did better. It got to number 18 in the UK, as I say. Rebel Yell was then re-released later. So this was a huge hit. I think his vocals are so cool on it. I mean, I think that's one of the things that sets him apart from a lot of the rock vocalists at the time, is he just sounds different. He's in the lower range rather than the high range. He can scream if he wants to, but he generally is singing, as I say, almost like a crooner. You've got that kind of 80s drum machine sound that's just going through it. The backing vocals sound very Human League to me. And then Steve Stevens' guitar solo stroke riff kicks in about halfway through and just changes the song and the pace of the song and the tone of the song. It's just brilliant. And then it kind of comes back to where it was. I think this is a masterpiece of a song. And I'm not surprised it was a big hit at the time.
Yeah, well, pop did flirt with metal or hard rock guitar heroes. Like, Michael Jackson beat it.
Exactly.
With the Eddie Van Halen solo. So this is a perfect example of where you've got something that's kind of melancholy, Idol's crooning, and wonderfully, the guitarist just chimes in with this really savage guitar line right in the middle. And it's like a palate cleanser, but it's a different type of palate cleanser. It's like, ouch, let's just turn it up. And then it goes back into the melancholy. I love his vocals on this, and I'm not sure. I mean, I get the feeling he's a little bit vulnerable. I don't know in reality how vulnerable he is, because I think he was just full of piss and vinegar, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and just, I was the toast of the town. Where we get to the next album we talk about, that's where he's very vulnerable and probably actually is feeling it. But I just get a lot of, I don't know, maybe, I get a lot of vulnerability out of this song. I don't know. I like it. I really like it a lot. I think it's one of the strongest tracks on the album. Blue Highway. So this is one where Steve Stevens comes out of the gate with a chugging guitar riff. Works Up a Sweat. What do you think of this song?
Well, at the time that he was recording this, he was hanging out with Motley Crue. He and Vince Neil were best buddies in LA. And I think you can hear that on this song. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised to hear this song, I think, from a hair metal band or Motley Crue, other than Billy's vocals. I mean, his vocals don't sound like anybody from that era. But the rest of the song, I think, could be a Motley Crue song. And I'm not knocking that because I like Motley Crue around this era. So that's a compliment. I'm not knocking it at all. And as you say, the guitar from Steve Stevens is fantastic. Yeah, it's just really good. And that kind of combination of that sort of heavy rock guitar with Billy doing his crooning over it, where it would have been easy for him just to scream the vocals like most others would. And so I think he's quite reserved in the way he does it, and I think it works really well.
Yeah, I think it's the weakest song on the album. I think it's a little too safe. It's a little bit AOR, and that's probably because of the keyboard. I actually thought exactly the same thing. If it had a more helium, screechy singer, it may be metal. And, the Motley Crue connection seems very apt. Stevens Works Up a Sweat, but to me, it's a little bit wasted because I don't think it's a great song. But anyway, that's my opinion.
It's certainly not in keeping with the rest of the album, is it? I think it does.
No.
It does stand out as if it was recorded, as I say, almost recorded for somebody else or written for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it particularly fits in with the album. But
yeah. I found it a little bit safe, a little bit conservative.
Yeah.
And, just falls into that generic AOR that was, played on American radio at that time. So
interestingly, though, he still plays it live. You'd imagine it might be one of the deep tracks that you fall away, but he still plays it live. So
there you go. He regards this track. Yeah. Next one is another great song. Was a single, "Flesh for Fantasy." It plays up sonically to all the sounds of the 80s, the hand claps. You've got the Nile Rodgers guitar strum, the guitar stabs, and a lot of swagger and attitude. What do you think of this song?
I wonder how they ever got away with the lyrics listening it, because it was a hit, wasn't it? I mean, it was certainly top 30 in the UK. I think it was top 30 or top 20 in the States. So, yeah, I'm surprised that he got away with it. I don't think he'd get away with the lyrics now.
Face to face and back to back, you see and feel my sex attack.
Exactly. But I think it's a great song, as you say. There's a bit of funk in there. It reminds me of sort of Duran Duran with their sort of when they bit later when they got into that Notorious era where they got a bit funky or funkier. But there's a bit of post-punk in there as well with some of the guitar work, and it's very atmospheric. Yeah, really good song, and just shows you that he was not afraid to be different when he recorded the albums. You got very, you listen to this and you listen to Rebel Yell. They're very, very different types of songs. So he certainly wasn't afraid to diversify his styles of music, I don't think.
Yeah, look, I think this is Billy Idol as the commodity, the plastic 80s pop star, the shiny, swaggery little, pop idol. I like it a lot. It's got a lot of attitude. And, even with the hand claps, the funk bass and the Nile Rodgers, guitar stabs, doesn't date. I like it.
No.
There are some songs that are, if you carbon date it, you could tell, oh, that's 83, that's 84, that's 82. And some sound really dated. They sound like they're kind of fossilized in that period. And you can see that, wouldn't get played on radio now. And it just doesn't sound sort of fresh. But this, even though it has all the elements of a song, with the Sonics of 1983, it still sounds fresh, and
It
maybe
does, yeah.
maybe it's the forgiveness factor because it's such a good song, and it's got so much attitude, and you just it's a free pass. You let it go through.
Maybe.
Anyway, yeah. All right, Catch My Fall. What do you think of this song?
I think this is a good song. It's not a great song, but I think it's a good song. It was a single, but not a hit, and I'm not surprised it wasn't a hit because I don't think it's quite distinctive enough. But I like the new wave bass opening to the song. I think his vocals are good. He's particularly low key with it, with it low key as in it, singing in a low key. Um, I think the sax. I quite like sax if it's done well on a song, and I think the sax sounds pretty good on the song. So, whilst not a favourite, I certainly like the song, and it's catchy, isn't it? I mean, he particularly at this stage, he and Steve Stevens seem to be very good at just writing catchy sort of pop rock songs, really.
It's not as hooky as I'd like it to be. He's crooning, but he's a bit more restrained. It's not one of the strongest songs on the album, and I do give it a tick. It's got some pretty mad sax lines in it. That's probably the best part of the song.
Yeah,
So I think this must have been the fifth single because yeah, they were pumping out a lot of
yeah,
singles off this album, so this would have been right at the tail end. And I think that the fumes were, there were no more fumes. Gee, the 80s, the era of the singles, like so many albums where you could just pump out singles, couldn't
yeah.
you? And this is one of them. Um, Crank Call. There's a bit of a metal punk song that is submerged in this song, isn't it?
Yeah, the vocals I think he sounds almost like Talking Heads the way he sings it, which I'm not a huge Talking Heads fan, but I don't mind them and I think it works quite well for the song. I'd say yeah. I mean, I've written down 70s new wave, so I agree it's kind of got a bit of a punky sound to it. And again, Stevens' guitar works really good on the song, so yeah, enjoyable I think. Although not a classic.
Too much pop polish, maybe? That's what I wrote.
Maybe,
It
yeah.
had a bit more.
Yeah,
I think the thing that spoils this song is I'd like less of the veneer, less shine, a bit more edge. Maybe that's in the way it's been mixed and the production, but just I don't know. Just it needs to be a little bit harder because I think there's a really decent metal punk song submerged
yeah,
in this one. So, but as I said, I think the template for this album was it's got to be played on radio. Don't make it too metallic, and
yeah, maybe.
and that was the thing. I'll give you an example, and I'm going about Michael Jackson. Quincy Jones was talking to Steve Lukather because Toto, they recorded all of Thriller. And Steve
Mm,
Lukather on some of the guitar lines, Quincy said, no, that's too metallic. We want to be played on R&B radio. So there was this thing about, if you want to play pop music and you want to have guitar, you've got to mute it. And that's what
yeah,
I'm bringing it to this album. I think a lot of the guitar work and a lot of the sonics have been muted so it gets played on radio and it doesn't go into the Kerrang for Kerrang fans
yeah,
only. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
I think you're probably right. And certainly the guitar, whilst I think the guitar on Crank Call's good, it is low in the mix. You got to kind of really listen for it, I think.
Yeah. Do Not Stand in the Shadows. I like this. This is almost power pop.
Yeah, well, funny, yeah, I wrote it down as this sounds the most like Generation X, I think, on the album. Um, so it's got that kind of late 70s poppy new wave sound to it. So yeah, you're right. Which is kind of borders power pop.
A lot of
Um,
energy. A lot of energy.
lot of energy. I think listening to the album again, it kind of became my favourite track, probably because I'm just not so familiar with it.
Yes.
Listening to it's kind of come through as an underrated gem. Really, I think it's a really good song.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got the synth chimes again,
Yeah,
which you kind of forgive. But Idol's vocals are great. They kind of glide over the melody. I think this is a real underrated track. This would be one of
Yeah.
my one of the strongest tracks on the album. Very good. The final track is The Dead Next Door. Now, I really get a Jim Morrison, Scott Walker vibe on this. We haven't mentioned Jim Morrison. Now, you've mentioned Presley, but there's a bit of Morrison, Jim
Yeah.
Morrison,
Yeah.
in some of his vocal delivery and the melodrama, because there's a little bit of melodrama in his delivery. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think it's a really cool song. I haven't really got a lot to say about it. It's slow. It builds. It is quite 80s sounding with that drum machine. But I like the song. I think it's really good, and his vocals sound great on it. And it's, whilst I'm not normally a fan of slow songs to finish an album, I think this finishes it off nicely, and it works pretty well.
Come on, mate. We've got to do a ballad show one day. There's got to be a few ballads in the world
Yeah.
that you like. We'll find one, folks. We'll find
We'll
one.
find one. I do like this song, but as I say, it finishes the album well, and I think it cut after "Do Not Stand in the Shade." I think it kind of, using your phrase, it's a bit of a palate cleanser just to finish off the album.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably. Oh, we've got to do a ballad. Let's finish it.
Yeah,
A lot of reverb in the vocals, very echoey. So that's maybe where I got the Jim Morrison from.
yeah,
But
maybe.
well, there you go, folks. All in all, a very solid album and a joy to listen to. If you haven't got this in your collection, do yourself a favor and make sure it's probably his best album. Oh,
Flip to the other side of yours. Different reverse.
well, that's the insert. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got an insert with mine.
This is a recent pressing, so
Yeah,
I would imagine you've got
an
one of the
insert with mine.
you got one of the earlier
Oh
ones.
yeah, I got this at the time. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So then we go to Kings and the Queen.
Well, just before we do that, I just want to show this. This was the greatest hits album that came out in the late 80s. That's got all of the hits up to a point. So Rebel Yell, Hot in the City, White Wedding, Eyes Without a Face, Catch My Fall, Mony Mony, the live version of Mony Mony, To Be a Lover, Sweet 16, Flesh for Fantasy, Don't Need a Gun, and Dancing with Myself. And the reason I just wanted to show that, and there he is on the back, is along with Queen Greatest Hits, this is my favourite Greatest Hits album. I just think these songs are brilliant, and whilst I like his albums, I do think he was fantastic at writing. He was writing really catchy, hooky singles that just that were hits on both well, probably across the world really. So yeah, 88 that came out. There are later greatest hits albums, but for me that's the definitive one. And as I say, along with Queen, my favourite greatest hits album.
Very good. Well, yeah, I know his greatest hits was a bit of a blockbuster and sold a lot of units around the world. And if you look at the hits off that album, it's radio staples to this very day on classic rock or those stations that specialize in 80s music. Alrighty, well, let's go to the next album that we're going to cover. And this is Kings and Queens of the Underground, which came out in 2014. I must admit, I wasn't familiar with this album when I was presented with this challenge from you, Parish. So, yeah, I've been listening to this over the last month. Produced by the great Trevor Horn. People on this channel know what a big Uber fan I am of Trevor Horn's work. ABC, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Yes, he's just the man for me in regards to 80s production, and also produced by a Greg Kirsten on a couple of songs as well. Did you buy this in the day?
I did. So I'm a big Billy Idol fan. Liked him all the way through the 80s. Didn't liked him up to, but not including Cyberpunk, which was his 90s album, early 90s album.
And a
Although I
bit of a
saw him on
fall
that
off
tour.
for a lot of people, actually. That was
Yeah,
probably the jump the shark bit.
yeah, it was, and no Steve Stevens on it. So that's why I think the two have to be together. And then he disappeared, and I didn't realise this until much later that he disappeared to bring up his kids. That is, he looked at himself in the mirror, found out his wife had overdosed. I don't know if she died or was just taken to hospital, but his kids were living with his wife or his ex-wife. She had overdosed, and he decided that somebody had to be there to bring him up. So through the 90s, he spent his time bringing up his kids. And then 2005, he came back with this album, Devil's Playground, which we could have done, and is a great album. And that's when I reconnected. And just as a side story, he was playing Download Festival, Donington, as most people know it, in 2005. And I wasn't going, but my sons were going, so I dropped my two sons off at just outside. We're looking for somewhere to turn around. Saw this gate that was opened. Turned around in this gate. Had gone into the VIP enclosure without realising. Was surrounded by these bouncers who wasn't going to take any excuse. They were obviously looking for some fun. Kind of got me to get out the car. Were giving me a lot of abuse. And then this voice from behind me said, "No, it's all right, he's with me," in this strong London accent. And I turned around, and who should it be but Billy Idol, who came strolling over and said, "No, it's all right, he's with me." I told him to come here. Started talking to me, asking me how I was. So the bouncers kind of disappeared. And then very slowly, very calmly, he said, that, kind of asked me what I was actually doing, and I explained. And I told him I was a big Billy Idol fan. And he said, "Well, if you're a big Billy Idol fan, what was my first single that I released as a solo artist?" So I told him it was this, Dancing with Myself, Dancing with Myself. And he said, "No, it's not. That was my last single as Generation X, not my first solo single." But he said, even if the fact you even know it shows that you're you're a bit of a fan. And he went off, came back, gave me tickets to get in as a VIP to see him play at Download. And also gave me some ticket. He asked where I lived, and I said I lived quite close by, so he gave me tickets to go and see him. He was touring and he was playing Wolverhampton, so he gave me tickets to get in that day to Download to see him, and gave me tickets for me and my sons to go and see him at Wolverhampton.
That is a great
and then he just disappeared. So it was great. And stood just behind him, but never said a word, but just watched, was Lemmy. But Lemmy didn't intervene, didn't do anything. He just stood there. But Billy Idol came over, and yeah, great guy. So people say don't meet your idols, pun intended. But in his case, I would say absolutely. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy.
What a story. Fantastic.
Yeah. So from that point, I was back. I was on board. Got this album, as I say, Devil's Playground. If you look at the album cover, you can see he's absolutely playing to his image with the spiky blonde hair and the snarl. Got this album when it came out. I play it a lot, and because of that, I can't find it. I went looking. I spent all morning this morning trying to find it. I just can't find it anywhere. I've got a feeling I might have lent it to somebody and never got it back. But yeah, great. I think both that album and this one are just great comeback albums. Fantastic, comeback albums. So I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag of what I think of this album. But yeah, got it at the time. Saw him again play on the tour. Fantastic stuff.
Okay, well, let's tuck in. We'll start off with the first song, Bitter Pill. So the first thing you hear is that nice warm tone in the vocals. It's got that wonderful honey smooth baritone. And this song, like a lot of the songs of this album, are very anthemic, aren't they? It's like anthems.
They are, yeah.
You could call it the anthem album.
Absolutely.
What do you think of this song?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say, he released the album at the same time as he released his autobiography, which was called Dancing with Myself. And as a result of that, I think a lot of the songs are semi-autobiographic. There's a lot of comparison. Talks a lot about what he did growing up, Generation X, his solo stuff, and there's a bit of that in this song, isn't there? A bit of Pill, where he's kind of talking about sort of his life and things. I think it's really catchy. I think it's upbeat. His vocals sound fantastic. He's back. Well, his last album was the comeback album, I guess, 5 years earlier. But nonetheless, no, nearly 10 years earlier, I think, the previous album. But his vocals are really strong. Steve Stevens on form. I think it's a really good album opener. And I'm sure it was the wrong time for him to be having hits. But I think if it'd been released maybe in the 80s, it could have been a hit. It's certainly catchy enough and got enough hooks on it. So, I think it's a really good album opener.
Okay. The next song is Can't Break Me Down. Now, I reckon this song sounds like a song that the Killers might have done on their first album, Hot Fuss. It's got a very killer sound to it. What do you think of this song?
I think this is a brilliant song. Firstly, I would say it's up there with White Wedding and Rebel Yell as one of his best songs. His vocals are really powerful. The chorus, again, is really catchy. I think it's the best song on the album, and I think it's his best song since the early 80s. And the drumming is really powerful and great. I think he's great on it as well. And again, we talked earlier about him having piss and vinegar. Well, he's definitely got piss and vinegar on this song. And 2015, the album came out. But he's looking up on Wikipedia that he actually started recording the album in 2010. So it was over quite a long period. But this does sound to me like a lot of rock music that was being recorded at that time. Maybe the Killers were a bit earlier, but it was certainly that kind of early 2000s sound. So, I just think it's really good.
Yeah, it's hooky, but I think it's a bit of a stretch to say it's as good as White Wedding and some of the 80s. It's hooky, but I'm not think it's as hooky as that. As I said, I think it's very much taking in what were the sounds of rock at that particular time. One thing I'm finding interesting on this song is he's really pushing out a higher register. He's really pushing the vocals out on this into a tonality that I haven't really heard him sing. So that gets a tick from me. So, all right. The next one, Save Me Now. Now, I reckon this sounds like a little bit like Simple Minds. It's got that electro pop sort of sound to it. And interesting about Simple Minds, considering Billy Idol wrote Don't You Forget About Me, there's a lot of songs on this album that I was sort of thinking, oh, this kind of would be in a mid-period Simple Minds album. I don't know. What do you think of this song?
Well, I hadn't really thought of the Simple Minds connection, but I do think it sounds very 80s in its sound. Maybe it's the use of the synthesizer on it that kind of gives that feel. And he's not frightened of returning back to the 80s, even though it's sort of 30 years later. I think he's not frightened of going back and using those sounds that were good for him in the past. But I think it works really well. I like the guitar. I think the guitar's powerful. The guitar's up in the mix, which is really good. Interesting, bearing in mind the comment you made about the guitar was toned down on the 80s albums. Well, certainly on this album they pushed it up. So I think it's really good, a really good song, and I can definitely see your point about the Simple Minds connection.
It's got a widescreen sound to it, a very soaring chorus. So it's around that period that Simple Minds did Once Upon a Time, where they really dropped the pretenses of being this little indie dance, new wave, post-punk band and became something that was competing with your U2s and the big countries and all that sort of thing, where the choruses would go to the back of the stadium, back of the rafters. So he's going for something, he sold multiple copies of albums in the 80s. I guess, you're always going to trade back on what worked for you when you're at your absolute stone cold peak. This album is very autobiography. It is, a lot of the lyrics are self-reflection, introspective, and interesting you said there was a book tie-in. So
Yeah,
it's basically each song's like a chapter of his life. Whether it's addiction, whether it's failed marriages or failed relationships or the career going off on the rails. Each song is like a chapter, a stepping stone along the way. So it's interesting you were saying that you got the book. Now you can listen to the album, and it's sort of like the song is a tie, the songs are a tie-in with the book. Have you read the book?
Yeah. I haven't. I did buy it, but I never wrote. I'm not huge at autobiographies, although I imagine his is pretty cool, because he'll have a lot to talk about, not least that period after, the
a lot of
motorbike
salacious stuff to
accident,
talk about, I imagine.
Yeah, all of the drugs and all of that. So it's probably a good book to read. But I bought it at the time I bought the album. But yeah, I'm not big on autobiographies. So
yeah, all cool. Next song, One Breath Away. This has got a little bit of the Trevor Horn sound. Now, Trevor Horn loves putting an orchestral sound to his, think of The Look of Love, ABC. Think of those Frankie Goes to Hollywood, like Two Tribes, where it's layer upon layer of instrumentation. This one is just, it's just got his typical sounding Trevor Horn production. What do you think of this song?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, it's kind of got an 80s sound to it, but it's a bit more sort of punky and a bit of hard rock in there as well. So yeah, I think it's a good song, and as you say, very well produced. Maybe not one of my favourites on the album, but I don't think there's a bad song in the album. So
yeah,
I think it's decent.
And it starts off a little bit trip hop. It sounds starts off like Portishead. Do you remember them? I don't know. Maybe they weren't your sort of genre of music, but
no, they weren't. But I remember them.
Yeah, had it had kind of this percussive beats, quiet vocals, and then it goes into the Trevor Horn orchestral. Idle pushes a hard vocal on it, when he sings One Breath Away. So he's really stretching his vocal chops on this one, and vocally he's pretty good on this album.
Yeah, I think he is as well. Yeah, absolutely. No.
Postcards from the Past. Now, this is the most autobiographical song on the album because it's actually name dropping certain things. A rebel girl and a this and a that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of got a good new wave sound to it. I love the keyboard riff that kind of drives it along, particularly in the beginning. Nice build to it as it gets louder and faster with that keyboard riff, and then you get the guitar kicking in with Steve Stevens. And I think the chorus, which is really up tempo. I wouldn't say it's fast as such, but it's an up tempo chorus, is really catchy. I think it's a really good song.
Well, Stevens lifts a guitar line straight from Rebel Yell. Listen to it, and
I'll have to listen to that. Yeah,
it sounds exactly like that. So yeah, the lyrics are interesting. He goes, "Now I'm roaming through the streets that are empty to find my destination. Will you touch my fascination once again?" So he's sort of asking the audience, putting a feeler out. Are you guys still interested in me? I was a star, and here's my comeback. Are you fascinated? Do you want to hear more? So very interesting. A little bit vulnerable, which is quite interesting. There's a lot of vulnerability on this album. Kings and Queens from the Underground, self-titled song. This is a bit of a ballad, another autobiographical number. This is the one where in the 80s you get the cigarette lighters in the air, and these days they get a mobile phone. The Apple's in the air. What do you think of this song?
Well, it's different, isn't it? Because it's an acoustic guitar. It's quite folky in its sound. As you say, it goes through Billy's history, sort of telling the story. But I really like it. Again, I think his vocals sound really good on it. He I don't know. He sounds genuine in telling the story. He's quite passionate in his vocals around his life. And I think the chorus is great. So I mean, what it does remind me of a bit as well is there's a little. I suppose it's the folky guitar maybe, but it reminds me a little bit of T-Rex on some of their sort of their early when they were Tyrannosaurus Rex folk more than heavy rock era, and I don't know why, but it kind of reminds me a bit about that as well. Which I like. I'm a big T-Rex fan, so it kind of appeals to me as well.
I actually put Scarborough Fair, Simon and Garfunkel, maybe because it had
Well, there
that
you
sort
go.
of folkish, that folkish feel about it. I think it's a little awkward, a little bit mawkish, but that's probably says more about me than Billy. But yes, it does quote the milestones of his history. So, but yeah, not my favorite track off the album. There's a lot of balladry on this album, a lot of the slower tempo, not as rocking. It's very much a crooning type of album. Eyes Wide Shut, I think, is the best ballad on the album. I think he's definitely, again, this falls into the mid-'80s Simple Minds. What do you think of this song?
I think his vocals are brilliant on it. I think it really shows off how good his vocals still are. I mean, I don't think it's I've said earlier which is my favourite track on the album, but I think it's a really good track. Yeah, it definitely got that mid-'80s sort of rock, arena rock or stadium rock sound. So I can definitely see that Simple Minds comparison. It's obviously got fixations with eyes, hasn't he? We had Eyes Without a Face, and now we got Eyes Wide Shut. So he's obviously carrying a theme through of sorts. But yeah, good. As I think on most of this album, I just think he's written some really good songs, which makes a really good album.
Yeah. Ghost and the Guitar. I get an ELO classic 70s rock feel about this. This would be one that I think Jeff Lynne wouldn't be too far out of the ballpark and, in his sort of territory, musical territory. What do you think of this one?
Well, yeah, funny you should say that, because I think it sounds a bit like the White Album Beatles kind of era. And as we know, Jeff Lynne was also a big Beatles fan, and there was an overlap there. So, yeah, I can see that. Another kind of acoustic-driven song, but very catchy. The chorus in particular, I think, is great. And another song where he's kind of reflective of his life and what he's achieved. So, yeah, I think it's a really good song.
Absolutely. I've got to make a correction. Don't You Forget About Me was not written by Billy Idol, but it was offered to Billy Idol. And
Was it? Yeah.
You got to often think if Billy Idol had covered that, I think it would have gone to number one as well. I think it's one of those bulletproof songs. If you had the, sort of hit the right laneway, would have been a hit otherwise. So I think Billy was right for that. Nothing to Fear. It's got a bit of a different vocal, this one. Feels like Billy's really close to the mic and he's kind of very emotionally charged to this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think again the vocals are really good on it. It's I like the way it builds from a sort of a mid-paced verse into the chorus. But the thing I like most about the song is the guitar. The guitar is kind of understated, but really powerful all the way through. And again, just shows how good Steve Stevens is, how different he can be to other guitarists. You can imagine a few people would have had the guitar screeching out on this, but he doesn't. It's, as I say, very sort of understated, but the power is definitely there. So for me, it's the guitar that I really like on this song.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a melancholy sweep to it, and the guitar sonics really add to it as part of the sonic tapestry. The next song, Love and Glory, this sounds like U2, Rattle and Hum era. Comes off as very evangelical. It's like Billy Idol being the weary rock and roll preacher. You know, the chorus is all love and glory. It's a little cliched, but Billy sings with such earnestness. You can't mark him down for it. It's endearing. What do you think about this?
Again, I think it's another really good, catchy song. I like the way, again, it builds. It kind of starts. There's no guitar or drums really in it. Just him and the keyboards, and then the drums suddenly kick in and sort of lifts it a bit, and then the guitar kicks in and lifts it again. And I just think it's a really good song. Yeah, really good.
And then we finish off with a rocker right at the end.
Yeah.
You know, it's because there's not a lot of rock on this album. It's a bit more of a pop sort of album, but this is the hardest rocking song, and another chapter in his book, Whiskey and Pills, bit self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I kind of wish there was more songs like this, because it's got a gnarly Stevens riff, great guitar solo, bit of an afterthought maybe.
Well, to be honest, it sounds more like this album. There's a lot more up-tempo songs of this ilk on this, so it's definitely worth having a listen to that if you've not. I don't know. It feels as if it might be kind of almost left over from the previous album, but I think the song's really good. You can hear his snarl, his sneer as he's singing it. Again, we're talking about piss and vinegar. I do that piss and vinegar. It's definitely got that, and it just shows you that he still knows how to rock, and rock, hard. So I think it's again a really good album closer, and one of the best tracks on the album.
It is, but alas, it's right at the end. It's like that Saxon album we reviewed, 10 episodes ago. Save one of the best tracks right to the end.
Yeah,
and it just gives you a taste.
It makes you want to flip it over and listen. Makes you want to flip over and listen to it again, though. So I think it kind of fulfills its purpose.
Yeah, look, I just wish there were more songs like that, a little bit more edgy.
Well, in which case I think you'd like that. I think you'd like that album because that's got more of that edge to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, what is your preferred album out of the two?
Well, it will come as no surprise, I think, that my preferred album, if I can find it, is Rebel Yell.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a classic, and it's just got such brilliant songs on it.
Yeah.
But it is a big but that I think is comeback albums. The ones we've spoken about. There was the two EPs he did. The Cage is really good as an EP. And his latest album, Dream Into It, which came out earlier in the year. I saw him live Wembley earlier in the year. It wasn't a tour. He did a one-off gig at a festival. I think they're all really good. I think it's it came back in 2005, and all the stuff he's done since then has been decent. He seems quite prolific in releasing albums or EPs, and he's out there touring with Steve. All of this stuff has come with Steve Stevens on it, and I think that makes a huge difference. And he's great live. So I do really enjoy these later albums, but I don't think they are quite up to the classics. But certainly good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the win for me. I think it's such a strong album. Couple of tracks, are okay, but the quantity of killer and filler is it's a pretty high ratio of killer tracks. So that's it for the win for me. Thank you, sir, for bringing this to the challenge. I really enjoyed listening to Billy Idol and revisiting a lot of these old tracks and listening to some new tracks. So definitely I'll check out a bit more of his later catalogue. Parish of Rock, you can see him on the Contrarians, a lot of other channels. Just type in the Parish of Rock. We have this ongoing series where we compare albums and lots of different shows coming up in 25 and 26. Once again, thank you, Parish, and we're going to talk offline, come up with another album battle, or putting a focus on maybe some albums that, folks just forget about. So all the best. Cheers, and see you later.